Chaddy, welcome to the GROUPEX Podcast, mate. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Tony. It's wonderful to be here, actually.
Awesome. One word to describe you.
Oh,
Put you on the spot right from the word go, haven't I?
haven't you? Bang, take that. One word. I'd say interesting.
Interesting. Okay, we'll roll
I
with
was
that
going to
one.
go with
I'm
the
gonna
word
have that one.
dichotomy, but interesting.
Look, I'd say 90% of my listeners probably wouldn't understand the word you just said.
Dichotomy?
I understand interesting. But
Yeah, okay. Let's run with interesting then.
Let's run with that one then.
Nice.
Tell us a little bit about you, mate. How did you get into the fitness industry? And we've only got a shorter period of time here, so I know we were just chatting and you could have got long service leave 2 or 3 times over. But
Yeah.
how did it start for you, mate? Where did your journey kick off?
My journey kicked off being a soldier in the Australian Army, and I'm very thankful for that experience. And then I was medically discharged because of my spine, and
Oh, wow.
went through some rehab, did some stuff, and started to really realize how important movement was for us, and good movement. And from there, got out, started working in a warehouse, and realized very quickly that the lack of movement and emotional enjoyment, which is an interesting one, in what I was doing was causing that back pain to come back. So in 2002 or 2003, I think it was 2002, my ex-wife, was pregnant with my first child. And I said, I'm going to go mad if I don't change what I'm doing. And I went and studied fitness. And it's the first time in my life I was happy with the term nerd, because I didn't realize that I was passionate about studying something until I started studying anatomy, the human system, and from there it just grew and grew and grew. Like, I threw myself into that. Basically, at that point in time, I didn't have an option to fail. I had to pass, otherwise we were going to go broke, and I had to get this done, and I had to get out into the industry and start trying to make money out of it. So yeah, it was through a bit of adversity that, there was some dark times there, but I found something that I was all of a sudden passionate about.
Mate, thanks for sharing. That's an amazing beginning, an amazing, I suppose, feat to get through all of that to be where you are with the industry, mate. Yeah, the back stuff, are you back on track now? Is that all sort of taken care of?
To be honest, Tony, flares up, comes and goes. But again, I'm super happy with having the small amount of understanding that I have, because I can manage it and I can look after it. And I would say, I actually had a flare up the other day, and I can take steps now to reduce the severity of it, to reduce the duration of it, to put good movement in it, to make it feel safe again. And another component to that is the emotional aspect of understanding that I now have a bit more control over it. So I can I can go, look, that's occurred. Here's what I can do. Okay, I'm a bit stressed about it because there's a history there, but I can take this step, this step, this step. I can reduce it. And I'm fairly sure it's not a permanent thing. I just know it's there, and I can work with it, and I can get around it. So is it gone? No. Does it flare up? Yes. Can I handle it? Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Mate, as I said, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving us that insight as to where you began and where it all sort of kicked off for you.
Thank you.
How many years have you been in the industry in total?
This year would be my 21st year.
Okay.
Before that, I was Australian rules football player, again a soldier, very active as a kid, but still a bit chubby as a kid, but very active. And I played just about all the sports: basketball, baseball, swimming. I was a decent swimmer. Australian rules football. Played a bit of rugby league at school. Played a bit of rugby union at school. Played a bit of soccer at school. Did all of the cricket. Played cricket. Just did all of the Australian sports. Kid thing.
You've been active and fit most of your life. You've been involved.
I would say active. I wouldn't say fit. I would say active.
Movement.
I wouldn't say fit. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did it actually kick off then for being in the industry? As in, what was it first? Was it PT? Was it group classes?
Yeah.
Was it
just so PT?
Yep.
PT, and back when I studied, we also had to do a group fitness component where we had to write our own choreography and demonstrate that we had the capacity to hold a beat, which was interesting. I'll never forget that, actually, because I was the only one. This is how much fun I had on that course. I was the only one who dressed up. I was the only one who thought, here's a chance to pull out some 70s kit and really have a go at it. So brilliant. I may have passed. I may not have been in time 100% of the time, but I think because of my effort, I might have just snuck through a little bit there. And so that was a component. And then I started. One thing that's really good about being in the Army is it teaches you how to instruct other people very quickly and to be able to use your voice and, for lack of a better term, command. And even though I wasn't an officer, but taking those skills into a coaching role has been super beneficial. And not only that, like at conferences and now and taking like courses, even though I might be nervous on the inside, I have the ability to project my voice or project a level of confidence in my body's ability to give the information.
What's new in fitness? The Australian fitness industry news and commercial gym equipment suppliers website designed to provide fitness industry professionals with knowledge and information to make better informed business decisions.
Boot camps, a lot of group sessions, and then I got poached by a local gym in Brisbane. So that was for a corporate health company where I was quite successful. Got poached by a local gym in Brisbane. They wanted me to become their PT manager, and that club, there was a few clubs. That club had a lot of group fitness offerings. So I started cycle with RPM, and then I started doing group classes and just running group circuits, coaching groups, filling in for people everywhere, and just making sure that for me, it wasn't, I love saying this, if 30% of the people who walk into a fitness facility walk straight into the group fitness room, they don't look at the gym floor, they go straight into the group fitness room. So if you're only doing PT, you are missing out on that 30% of the people who are in that facility. Not only that, if you're doing PT, you're probably advertising yourself to a one-on-one. If you're doing PT and you're in a group class, you're advertising yourself to everybody that's in that room. And it was my experience that over time you built up a level of rapport and through that trust with people, that if that person wanted to try something new in terms of personal training, they would, because you've got that relationship with them, they would come to you and say, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think? And then 100%. You'd actually get PT clients out of group fitness classes.
Yeah. No, that's exactly what happened to me. I walked into the gym and I was training and doing stuff, but I walked past that RPM studio and went in there, and I was like, wow, this is dark, it's fun, it's loud music. Yeah, it's a whole lot of, this is brilliant going on here. When I started PT, I started realizing that my clients were the ones that were in front of me in the classes I was teaching. Yeah. All that big organization that I used to work for in North Sydney, they gave you all the triple packs that you had to convert and all that kind of stuff. And I was lucky enough I could go to them all, whether it was once a month someone come and saw me, once every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was. We worked it out. I always had converted all of those, which is brilliant. But when I went to try and get PT clients, you can't just stand on the floor with your arms folded, looking beefy and sort of, expect people to walk up, man. I walk into an RPM or a cycle studio, there's 40 people in front of you. As you're saying, it's the best place to go fishing. Apart from that, there was a whole lot of glamorous ladies in there when I was a lot younger that I was like, hello, nice to meet you.
I hope you edit this bit out, but every job has its perks.
Yes. Yeah, bleep, I'll edit that one. We're all good there.
Okay.
No, I was going to ask you, I read just recently that you were an RPM instructor. Can you remember what release you
29.
did training?
29.
Brilliant.
Funny story, I think that's one of Dan McDonough's first releases as well. And Dan's actually a very good friend of mine now through TRX. Excellent. And talk about circles. So Dan took me for TRX rip training back in 2011 or 2000. Actually, took me for TRX team in 2010, 2011. Then came out and took the instructor training for TRX rip training, and I was on that. And through that, we started to build a relationship. And we'd met a number of times at conferences and through TRX training and stuff. And so I actually taught Dan how to instruct the Y-Bell course. So we've gone full circle now. He's taught me something, I've taught him something. And what's really cool about that now is TRX have actually just purchased the Y-Bell product to sell it. So
oh wow,
yeah. So talk about circles, everything. Yeah,
love it. Dan, top bloke. I had him on the show earlier on as well, and I've got a lot of time for him. He's such a genuine human as well.
That show would have gone for a while because man can talk.
Yeah, look, I think we chatted for 3.5 hours, but
he's a good man, very good friend. Love the bloke, very good friend.
Yeah. So what I want to know is animal flow. Yeah. The main reason that I've got you on is to have a chat about animal flow. I love knowing you as an individual well. But can you throw us through a bit of a explanation on what is animal flow?
Yeah. So animal flow is a ground-based quadrupedal movement training practice or movement practice where we use 4 pillars to build resilience, or resilience is one of the pillars. But the big thing is we get the human animal to interact with itself. We want to give people the capacity to improve their motion, to improve their cognitive function, to all the benefits of strength training, sure, but to give people an outlet to be able to perform that. I mean, if we look at it, it's ground-based body weight quadrupedal movement training practice. So we don't need equipment to load tissue.
Yep.
If we think about this component, force equals mass times acceleration, we always have an acceleration force coming against us in the force of gravity, which is accelerating against it 9.81 meters per second squared constantly, and we adapt to that force.
Yep. How do you know that?
That's just something, mate, that honestly, when you turn into a nerd about this stuff, that's something that is just wedged up there and it's not going anywhere. But then we have... Brilliant. Thank you. Then we have our mass on top of that. And as we accelerate into the ground, we have ground reaction force that comes back at us, right? So we are applying a force into our tissue when we do body weight training. And that then reinforces tissue, i.e. skeletal muscle fibers, neuromyofascial web, the brain's awareness of where joints are in space. So if we take that and then build the animal flow 4 pillars around that, so connection, performance, resilience, and community. We don't say animal flow because we want people to act like animals.
Yep.
What we're really doing is inviting the human animal to interact with itself again. So how can we build connection through our community, which is another pillar of what we talk about, but how can we build connection with the individual within themselves? So how do they learn where their joints are in space a little bit better? How can they understand how to load and unload that tissue a little bit better? How can they be able to communicate with their joints and with their system and give their body access to a movement capacity that maybe they weren't aware of or weren't working with? And that then leads to a host of other benefits, obviously. If we look at performance, every time we hear the word performance, we think of elite athletes, right? And if we think of exercise as a skill or movement as a skill, by doing animal flow, coming down to the ground, we can create a level of safety where we might be able to perform some tasks where we don't feel safe when we're standing up against the force of gravity. So we can build movement into tissue that it may not have access to or be able to do at this point in time by bringing people down to the ground and making them feel safe. So we can build balance, speed, endurance, and sure, all of that, and skeletal muscle fiber strength and connective tissue strength, all of that turns into, like if you play a sport, it's definitely beneficial for sport. Now, if we compare that, so performance and then the next pillar, resilience, for me, the best thing about animal flow and building resilience is it fills in the gaps to all of the other forms of training that you might be doing.
Yep.
So if we think about, we do a lot of rotation in animal flow. We do a lot of rotational strength in animal flow. We change our orientation to gravity in animal flow. We are radially loaded through the spine a lot of the times instead of being axially, I hate that word, but being loaded top to bottom, axially loaded. So we can then, and if we go back to the SAID principle, specific adaptation to impose demand, if we, you know that term, if we don't move it, we lose it?
Yep.
Well, it's 100% true, but the best way to really think about that is we reinforce what we do.
Okay.
So if that do is sit in a chair and type all day and then go home on public transport or drive or whatever it is, and then we sit in a chair to eat our dinner, and then we sit in a chair to watch television, and then we lie on a bed that's a similar height to the chair, and then we use a toilet that's a similar height to the... We reinforce what we do.
Yep.
So then we will, over time, lose the capacity or have to work hard to find that capacity again, to find those joint ranges of motion and that information and that tissue strength. So over time, by adding what I love term novel movement, because I really find animal flow, there's a great component of the flow component and how we can link moves together. But that novel activity is great for joint strength. It's great for the motor cortex. It's great for the central nervous system. And it's great for filling in the spaces of ranges of motion that you may not be putting your body through at this point in time.
This is the GROUPEX Podcast.
And then the last pillar that we have is our community. And in all honesty, in all of the formats that I teach, the animal flow community is probably up there with the most, what's the term I'm looking for? Active. And I don't mean active as in physical movement. I mean, they're active in the animal flow community. We have Facebook groups where they post every week. There's homework punched out and they post themselves doing flows. They ask great questions. They stay involved with the group. And it's really cool to see around the world. Like, I know people in Iran. I know people in Scotland. I know people in Ireland, places I've never been to. I know people in Spain. I mean, I've been to Barcelona once, but that was for a different thing. But I know that I can go to New Zealand and go to Wellington and there'll be people. I went to Hong Kong and I didn't know anyone and all. I knew Kevin Rushton, but all of a sudden there's people there that get together. And actually this weekend we have International Animal Flow Day, where again, what we're doing is building that community, and we're inviting people who may not have done a course and may not be coaches. They can come along and do it and practice with people who are regional leaders, or for myself, I'll be on the Sunshine Coast. But so that community aspect it's outstanding. I have no other word besides outstanding. The people who are involved in it are super passionate about it. Some are in fact, most of them are better animal flowists than what I might be, but they love it. Like it's a
Community's
thing.
massive.
People love it. Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah. Mate, I did a little bit of research. I jumped on the website before coming on to have a chat with you. There's a couple of questions I wanted to throw at you, if you don't mind. The first one here is, what are the 6 components of animal flow?
Lovely, great question. Thank you for asking. The first one is literally wrist mobilizations. And so I've got wrist mobs, activations, form-specific stretches, traveling forms, switches and transitions, and then the flow component in and of itself. So each of these, I can't use the word pillar but the components, that's the word. Each of these components is there for a reason. Our wrist mobs are there or wrist mobilizations are there to create a better experience for people. If we think about it, we don't locomote on all fours anymore.
Yep.
So we don't, and for good reason. I mean, bipedalism is a metabolic advantage as we walk through the field of gravity, right? Yep. But when we want to put, again, force through our mass, momentum, in this case, gravity, at 9.81 meters per second squared again. There you go. And ground reaction force into that tissue. Because it's not used to it, we need to prepare that tissue to be able to deal with the stress that we're about to impose on it, which is what our wrist mobilizations really help people do. So that's wrist modes.
Yeah. What's the second one?
Activations. Now, for me, this is a really cool way of getting the neural connection between the joints and asking tissue to do some work in a fairly static environment. So we aren't imposing locomotion on the body at this point in time. We're just bringing a lot of really great awareness to where the joints are in space, and in a lot of cases, in good postural alignment. So again, if we go back to the theory of we reinforce everything that we do, if we can spend a bit of time in better postural alignment, we're going to reinforce that better postural alignment for a little while. But then we can build motor cortex awareness of, okay, this joint's here in space, this joint's here in space, this is what a good spinal posture looks like. And in terms of what that carries over to is when you're telling your clients, hey, neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine, neutral spine. You can make a song out of that on a gym floor. They actually have no map to what that neutral spine is. So our activations actually help us map those terms that you're going to use in, and again, it fills a lot of gaps for me. It helps us map that to so when we coach people on the gym floor, it's got that ability to be able to do that. You've said you've taught it, you've mapped it, what a neutral spine is, so that when you say neutral spine, it has a reference. You have a reference to that, not just a reference.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then we can create
totally.
Irradiation, tension in through the skeletal muscle fibers and the connective tissue network to reinforce that posture as well.
Yep. So the third one?
Yeah, form-specific stretches. The word stretch is a total and utter lie.
Yep.
Probably one of the best ways to improve strength at end range, or central nervous system control at end range of motion for that person, which is literally the definition of mobility. So one of the best ways that we can improve people's mobility and give them strength at, again, joint ranges of motion, which they may not put themselves through in daily life. And I always, when I teach the course, we go through the 6 components, and I just get them to write the word stretch is a lie, because we do that first thing on day 2 or second thing after our wrist moves. And I just, at some stage during the form-specific stretches, there will be grunting, there will be groaning, sweating, and maybe some swearing. Because when we go through them, we really explore those intentional end ranges and building strength in those intentional end ranges. So it's kind of, it's really interesting. In every course you teach, people go, "Phew, that was hard." And you're like, I told you the word stretch is a lie. But it's a great way to build mobility and stability in joint positions, which carries over to daily life, carries over to any sport, carries over to general movement. So yeah, very powerful tool.
Yep.
Traveling forms are the way we mimic the functions of animals to improve the human animal. So it's, for me, it's how we locomote. It's how do we take quadrupedal movement and locomote it across the floor. And it's one of the things, like animal flow, people say it looks like this, it looks like that, it looks like this. In animal flow, there's a lot of intent point differences, which is a really great statement, because it means that nothing's right or wrong, nothing's better or worse. Just the intent for what we're trying to achieve at that point in time might be different to another style or movement practice. And our traveling forms, you might be used to doing static stuff on a mat and maybe moving a little bit, but this is where this is why wrist moves are important, because this is where we really start to get ground reaction force coming back into that wrist tissue and putting movement through joints again that it may not be used to handling.
Yep.
5, switches and transitions. This is what I call the woo funny stuff. This is the spinny stuff. This is the excellent stuff that everybody wants to get to. This is the one where we spin and we move, and it is the bulk of our animal flow practice. But the powerful thing about everything that we've done up to this point in time is that if we do our wrist moves, we know that our wrists should be able to deal with particularly rotational force a little bit better.
Yep.
If we've done our activations, we know we've taught our body the grounding for the body postures or similar postures that we're going to go through when we do our switches and transitions. If we've done our form-specific stretches, we've given ourselves strength to be able to move around, and we do add form-specific stretches into our flows, but to be able to move around those novel movement environments. And if we understand the traveling forms, we've given the tissue the ability to learn how to deal with ground reaction force again as we're going through the switches and transitions. So they're the dynamic movements that kind of link animal flow that give us the sixth component, actual flow component. So in our flow component, there's 3 different types of flow. There's a call-out flow, which is say the move, do the move. There's a choreographed flow, which is we're going to put the flow together and then practice it and maybe not call it out as we go through it, but it still relies on the rules of animal flow. And that's a big one that we work on with the community, the 4th pillar earlier. Like, it's really cool where you'll see, we call them animal flow jams, instructor jams, and people get together and they work out and they write down their flows and they all sit there and they work out and go, oh, that one doesn't work, let's try this, da-da-da-da-da. And then they film it so it can go on social media, because if it didn't happen on social media, it didn't happen apparently.
Didn't happen. Yeah, so true.
So they film it and then they all look at it, and there's 7 to 12 people huddle around one iPhone or mobile phone, and they're watching it going, nah, do it again.
What's new in fitness? The Australian fitness industry news and commercial gym equipment suppliers website designed to provide fitness industry professionals with knowledge and information to make better informed business decisions.
Mate, that's fantastic to understand those 6 components and get an overview and a grasp of it all. Who created it? Who created Animal Flow?
He's a wonderful man and a very good friend of mine. His name is Mike Fitch. And the cool story with Fitchy is I've Australianised his name, i.e. Fitchy. He was a bodybuilder. He was working in a big chain gym in America, and all of a sudden he found these different avenues of moving that were just his body weight, and he started to put together this system. And even what he will tell you this, the exploration of the system, if he was to go back, like if we look at the original Animal Flow sort of lessons and sessions, that thing has evolved, because if we go back to what it is, a movement practice, through the practice we've evolved the Animal Flow methodology, language, which is a big part of what we do, and our understanding of the moves themselves. So Fitchy put it together, a very smart woman. He was training Karen, who's the sort of, if Fitchy's the movement brains and let's be honest, you've Googled him and you've gone, he's a good looking human. If you've seen the Animal Flow webpage and Fitchy's like spinning his leg in water there, it's very attractive. Karen is a beautiful person, and she is the administrative punch in the face that Fitchy needed to get this thing and make it like the thing that it is today. Yeah. And they're both wonderful people, and I miss them dearly.
How long has Animal Flow been around for?
Great question. Ooze. If you were to say, like, when did it kind of turn into Animal Flow, I would say Fitchy would have a date, but I think it's more an evolution of things that he was working on to a point in time, and then all of a sudden they went, okay, now we've got this system. I was introduced to it in 2014, I believe. 2013. I think 2013. They came out to Filex for the first time in Australia, and that was sort of our first introduction to it. And I met Fitchy in. This is a great story. I was at the New Zealand Fitness Conference, and I was giving a lecture in like a lecture hall where the seats are on an angle down, and I'm at the bottom of the lecture hall talking about something. I think it was programming, actually. And we'd only just met through the conference a couple of times, and I think I met him at Filex as well through a few people. But he stood up the back of the lecture room, and I was just talking away, hitting a couple of points, and I just noticed him standing there, and I just all of a sudden went, "G'day, Fitchy." And he went, "Oh, hey, buddy," as he does. And I just went back into it. And then, so we just started chatting away there. And he asked me, I think this was in late 2014. He asked me, "Listen, mate, would you be interested in being an animal flow instructor?" And my first response was, I went, no way, man. Like, he's like, "Why?" I said, "I don't move like you. I don't, like, I've played a lot of impact sports. I don't move like that. I think I move all right, but I'm not used to doing all of that. And I tell this story at every course because if we go back to movement practice, everybody is on this movement journey with animal flow. And again, we reinforce what we do. If you don't do it, you don't get better at it. So everybody's journey is different. Everybody can do some form of it. But he said one of his things was, that's exactly why I kind of want you to come on board, because you don't move like me. You don't look like me. But so that relationship grew from there. It was really cool. It's one of the things, one of my fondest memories is actually teaching a thing and just stopping and "G'day, Fitchy," and him going, "G'day, mate." And then the sort of relationship that grew from there has been awesome. Yeah.
Fantastic, mate. The benefits you've touched on, benefits of practicing animal flow. I mean, I suppose the question I want to ask you is, what about for a newbie? Is it achievable for a brand newbie who's just getting off the couch and wanting to start doing something?
Yep. So if you look at it from a group perspective, we've worked very hard on how to structure, and it's something you can learn if you. Sounds like a plug, but it's not. When you do the training, you get access to a whole heap of resources after the course. And then the group fitness side of it, teaching a group class, the formats that we've found to be successful. There's a lot of guidance around that on the Animal Flow platform once you become an instructor. So you are guided as to how to create a group fitness class. That's something that we're continually building on and working on, but we have found some formats that work quite well because we know, like group fitness people drop in and out of classes, right? So there's formats for building a flow or building a session for people that day and having people be successful while they're doing it. There's formats for, and this is quite successful in Sydney at the moment, you sign up for a block of training and you start off learning components, and then by the end of that block, you do your flow, like you've learned the flow that you're going to go through. There are level 1 moves, level 2 moves, and now level 3 moves. So if you look at the level 3 guys and you're going, wow, that's intimidating, if we go back to it being a movement practice, you may never get to that point, but the benefits of animal flow are still going to be in a lot of the level 1 moves, if that makes sense. And then for me, the activations are one of the most powerful things that we can give people access to, and the form-specific stretches are one of the things that we can give people access to. So if you're intimidated by the fast-moving flow across the floor and linking moves together and the tricky stuff, it's not tricky, but it looks tricky. Some of it is a little bit trickier than others. But there is definitely access to all human systems being able to access some elements, if not most elements of animal flow for sure.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and then in one-on-one sessions or sorry.
No, go. Please continue.
So in a one-on-one capacity, say in a circuit, like that, this is the great thing about the system. The system, a flow is a big part of the animal flow. I mean, it says it in the title. It's like the movie Snakes on a Plane. It says what it does. But the flow component is a big part of it. But you need to learn the elements to put the flow there. So the elements in and of themselves can be broken down and layered and taught different ways, and you get the specific outcome for that person being able to do it to their ability at this point in time. So animal flow is not just the flow component. There is a whole heap of elements that you learn to get to that point. And it's actually one of the really cool things about doing the course is some people are really excited by that, and some people are very intimidated by that sort of the thing. But by the end of day 2, they will all do a call-out flow, a choreographed call-out flow, that to the best of their ability at that point in time. So they will learn to link the movements together. They may not, some people nail it, some people look fantastic, some people still need some skill acquisition to be able to make it look better.
Yep.
But everybody can do the flow to the best of their ability at that point in time. And it's quite a success thing. Like when you say, you just did it. And they go, oh yeah, we did. So it's quite a successful little thing.
Yep. As an instructor wanting to do training, what's the best way for them to find out when the next training's coming up, or really more detail about what it entails?
Yeah, it's a couple of ways. Animalflow.com is probably, and then you scroll, there's a drop-down thing, level 1, level 2, level 3 courses. You have to do them in that order.
Yep.
So the other thing is, around the world, we have people called regional leaders, and they're also able to be contacted on the website. And they're another great source. Okay. This is how good this community is. These people, regional leaders, want to be that involved in animal flow that they wanted to roll within animal flow, and we created regional leaders to keep these people like engaged. They're leaders of the community in their area. So they do a really good job of building awareness of animal flow, of running instructor jams, of being the voice of the community that takes a lot of the heavy lifting off Fitchy, the guys in the States, and even the area master instructors. So they're a vital part of our community. So they're another really great way to, if you can go to the website and look up where's my regional leader, reach out to those guys. And then I think we also have a coaches directory on the Animal Flow website. So if you just kind of wanted to jump in, find someone, you should be able to go to that website, animalflow.com. And
that's what I saw earlier on.
Yeah. And then all the courses, a great thing about the course that I really love is you don't need to be an instructor to do the course and get the benefit of doing animal flow. If you want to come and learn from a master instructor, someone who's dived into a little bit more of the background, the science of it, not just the components of it, being able to coach them, then you can be something. So you can come and do the course and you can become an animal flowist. So not an animal flow instructor, but you can become an animal flowist and still be a part of the community, still do all the cool stuff we do. So even if you're not going to use it as a coaching tool for other people, that would make, if you were to do that, you'd be an animal flow instructor.
Yep.
If you were just a person, not in fitness land or not in whatever, and you wanted to do it, you can become an animal flowist and go through the process as well.
Brilliant. When's the next training course coming up off the top of your head?
Oh, Tony, I'm glad you asked. I don't know when this is going to air, but September 8 and 9, I'm in Sydney.
Yep.
And then in October, I go to Thailand and Manila. Yep. And then I come back home for a week, and then I go to Christchurch and Wellington.
Brilliant.
So Christchurch Christchurch or Wellington is the last weekend in October, and then Wellington or Christchurch is the first weekend in November.
Cool. Right. Where these episodes are generally recorded 2 to 3 weeks prior to when they actually go out. So I'd say this one will probably go out almost on the weekend of the 8th and 9th here in Sydney. So if those guys that have missed out, I'm sure there'll be another one coming up soon. So jump onto the website.
Yeah, and again, the animalflow.com website it's pretty simple to navigate, and you can find where classes are either level 1, level 2, or level 3.
Yep. Cool. Now, Chaddy, are you...
One thing I love about... Oh, go.
No, go for it.
Oh, so one of the things I love about Animal Flow is you have to do a test out procedure to actually become an instructor, to be certified.
Brilliant.
So I teach courses where it's show up for the day, be active, be a participant, and you pretty much walk away with the certificate. This course is, hey, go away for a few weeks, practice it, and then send us a video of you doing the moves and of you coaching somebody through the moves. Or a flow for level 1. And I mean, I'm not a fan of computers, but I really love seeing people's effort in trying to actually get the certificate, the instructor certificate. So it's a really cool format. And I think that's also another reason why the community is so strong. People have had to earn that bit of paper.
Yeah. So CECs, PDPs, whatever they're called these days?
Yeah. Oh, how many do we get in Australia? I think it's... Who are we registered with in Australia now? That's a great question. I think we get 15 because all up there's 2 days of training. So I'm pretty sure it's a 15 CEC course. But that would be something, to be honest, I'd probably have to look into to give you the exact answer.
That's all right. I'm sure there'll be details on the website. Otherwise, people will be able to jump online to their organisation and find it.
But I know it's registered in like, and even in Australia, if it's not registered in Australia now, if you do an overseas course, I believe the registering bodies in Australia will, authorise, will recognise the CECs that are associated with that course.
Cool.
So I know it is registered in the US&A.
Yep. Fantastic. Chaddy, thank you, mate. I know it's only been quick, but thank you for coming on board and having a chat to us about you and about Animal Flow. I've appreciated getting to know you a little bit more, but also understanding Animal Flow and what it can actually do and where people can find out about it, mate. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you, Tony. It's great to sort of share stuff like this with people because, it's that little thing that I see it as the bridge between everything that we already do in fitness land. This novel movement, this novel quadrupedal movement practice is something that we can really create wellness in people, not just traditional fitness goals. We can get traditional fitness goals by doing it, but we can invite novel stresses into tissue in a really safe, not only safe joint-wise, but central nervous system joint-wise, because we come down to the ground. So there's a lot of central nervous system and motor cortex and brain things that occur because we are coming down to the ground and we're taking the stress of standing against the force of gravity out of our tissue and inviting it to move in a new, novel, and a lot of times emotionally safer way.
Brilliant.
I mean, that could be a whole nother podcast on emotional and motivation and safety
We'll
stuff.
get into that at another time. I'm absolutely sure of that, mate. But thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on for a chat.
No worries, Tony. Great to be here. Honestly, super fun.